PV Narasimha Rao ascended into prime ministerial office at a time when India was stuck at its worst phase of economic turmoil. His keen foresight had initiated India to a path of liberalization, the ripples of which are felt by the country till date. Apart from being an astute politician, he was also a polyglot and a fount writer. As we celebrate the 100th anniversary of Father of Indian economic reforms, let us take a closer look on his life and achievements. Pamulapatti Venkata Narasimha Rao was born on June 28, 1921 in a Telugu-speaking Niyogi Brahmin family in the village of Lekanapalli village of Narsimpet Mandal in Warangal district. Later, he was brought to Vanjara, a village in Bhimadevarapalli Mandal of Karimnagar district in Telangana, when he was 3 years old. His father was Pamulapatti Sitarama Rao and mother Pamulapatti Rukmini, hailed from agrarian families. Rao completed part of his primary education in Katkuru village of Bhimadevarapalli Mandal in Karimnagar. He completed his bachelor's degree in the Arts College of Osmania University. PV Narasimha Rao was part of Vande Mataram movement in the late 1930s in the Hyderabad state. He later went on to Hislop College, now under Nagpur University, where he completed a master's degree in law. He completed his law from Fergusson College in Pune of University of Bombay, along with his distant cousin Pamulapatti Sadashiva Rao, Raja Narendra and Devulapalli Damodar Rao. PV edited a Telugu weekly magazine called Kakatiya Patra in the 1940s. Both PV and Sadashiva Rao contributed articles under the pen name Jaya Vijaya. He served as chairman of the Telugu Academy in Andhra Pradesh from 1968 to 1974. Narasimha Rao was an active freedom fighter during the Indian independence movement and joined full-time politics after independence as a member of Indian National Congress. Narasimha Rao served brief stints in Andhra Pradesh cabinet from 1962 to 1971 and as Chief Minister of State of Andhra Pradesh from 1971 to 1973. When the Indian National Congress split in 1969, Rao stayed on the side of the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and remained loyal to her during the emergency period. He rose to national prominence in 1972 for handling several diverse portfolios, most significantly Home, Defence and Foreign Affairs ministries, in the cabinet of both Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. In fact, it is speculated that he was in running for the post of India's president along with Zail Singh in 1982. Rao very nearly retired from politics in 1991. It was the assassination of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi that made him make a comeback. As Congress had won the largest number of seats in 1991 election, he got the opportunity to head the minority government as Prime Minister. He was the first person outside the Nehru-Gandhi family to serve as Prime Minister for 5 continuous years, the first to hail from South India and also the first from the state of Andhra Pradesh. Since Rao had not contested the general election, he then participated in by-election in Nandyal to join the parliament. N.T. Rama Rao, then the leader of chief opposition party of Telugu Desam, did not want to put a contest against Rao because he was the first Prime Minister of India from Andhra Pradesh and NTR did not want to create an obstacle on his path. By that, Rao won Nandyal with a victory margin of record 5 lakh votes and his win was recorded in Guinness Book of World Records. He also broke convention by appointing a non-political economist and future Prime Minister Manmohan Singh as his finance minister. Rao decided that India, which in 1991 was on brink of bankruptcy, would benefit from liberalizing its economy. He appointed economist Dr. Manmohan Singh, a former governor of Reserve Bank of India, as the finance minister to accomplish his goals. This liberalization was criticized by many socialist nationalists at the time. With Rao's mandate, then finance minister Manmohan Singh launched a series of pro-globalization reforms, including International Monetary Fund policies, to rescue the almost bankrupt nation from economic collapse. The impact of these reforms may be got from the fact that total foreign investment, including foreign direct investment, portfolio investment and investment raised on international capital markets in India grew from a minuscule $132 million in 1991 to $5.3 billion in 1995 to 1996. Rao began industrial policy reforms with the manufacturing sector. He slashed industrial licensing, leaving only 18 industries subject to licensing. Industrial regulations was rationalized. Rao energized the National Nuclear Security and Ballistic Missile Program, which ultimately resulted in the 1998 Pokhran nuclear test. He increased the military spendings and set Indian Army on course to fight the emerging threat of terrorism and insurgencies, as well as Pakistan and China's nuclear potentials. It was during his term that terrorism in the Indian state of Punjab was finally defeated. Also, scenarios of aircraft hijackings which occurred during Rao's time ended without the government conceding the terrorist demands. He also directed negotiations to secure the release of Doraiswamy, an Indian oil executive from Kashmiri terrorists who kidnapped him, and Liviu Radu, an Romanian diplomat posted in New Delhi in October 1991. Who was kidnapped by Sikh terrorists. Rao also ended the Indian response to occupation of Hazrat Bal Holy Shrine in Jammu Kashmir by terrorists in October 1993. He brought the occupation to an end without damage to the shrine. Similarly, he dealt with kidnapping of some foreign tourists by terrorist group called Al-Farhan in Kashmir in 1995 effectively. Although he could not secure the release of the hostages, his policies ensured that the terrorist demands were not conceded to, and that the action of the terrorists was condemned internationally. Rao also made diplomatic overtures to Western Europe, the United States and China. He decided in 1992 to bring into the open India's relation with Israel, which had been kept covertly active for a few years during his tenure as foreign minister, and permitted Israel to open an embassy in New Delhi. He ordered the intelligence community in 1992 to start a systematic drive to draw the international community's attention to Pakistan's sponsorship of terrorism against India, and he was not discouraged by US efforts to undermine the exercise. Rao launched the Look East policy, which brought India closer to ASEAN. He decided to maintain a distance from Dalai Lama in order to avoid aggravating Beijing's suspension and concerns, and made successful overtures to Tehran. The Cultivate Iran policy was pushed through vigorously by him. These policies paid rich dividends for India in March 1994 when Benazir Bhutto's efforts to have resolution passed by UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva on the human rights situation in Jammu and Kashmir failed with the opposition of China and Iran. Rao's crisis management after 12th March 1993 Bombay bombings was highly praised. He personally visited Bombay after the blast, and after seeing the evidence of Pakistani involvement in the blast, ordered the intelligence community to invite the intelligence agencies of the US, UK and other West European countries to send their counter-terrorism experts to Bombay to examine the facts for themselves. Rao successfully decimated the Punjab separatist movement and neutralized Kashmir separatist movement. It is said that Rao was solely responsible for the decision to hold elections in Punjab, no matter how narrow the electorate base would be. In dealing with Kashmir, Rao's government was highly restrained by US government and its president Bill Clinton. Rao's government introduced the Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act (TADA), India's first anti-terrorism legislation, and directed the Indian Army to eliminate the infiltrations from Pakistan, which was a largely successful army campaign. In 1993, a strong earthquake in Latur, Maharashtra killed nearly 10,000 people and displaced hundreds of thousands. Rao was applauded by many for using modern technology and resources to organize major relief operations to assuage the stricken people and for the schemes of economic reconstruction. The Purulia arms drop happened on 17 December 1995 when unauthorized arms were dropped from an Anto AN-26 aircraft in Purulia district in the state of West Bengal in India. The chief accused, Kim Devi, whose real name was Niels Christian Nelson, claims that it was a conspiracy of the Indian government together with Rao and MI5 to overthrow the communist government in West Bengal, and he was given assurances from the central government about his safety and return to Denmark. Narasimha Rao was charged for facilitating his safe exit of the accused of 1995 Purulia arms drop case, although it was never proved. Members of various Hindu nationalist organizations demolished the Babri Mosque in Ayodhya on 6 December 1992. The site is the birthplace of Hindu god Rama. The destruction of disputed structure, which was widely reported in international media, unleashed large-scale communal violence, the most extensive since the partition of India. Hindus and Muslims were indulged in massive rioting across the country, and almost every major city, including Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Bhopal, struggled to control the unrest. Narasimha Rao, who was then heading a minority government in the centre, cried foul over the incident. The centre's submission that the central forces could neither be deployed by the Union in totality of the facts and the circumstances then prevailing, nor could the President rule be imposed on the basis of rumours or media reports. Taking such a step would have created bad precedent, damaging the federal structure, and would have amounted to interference in the state administration. The state deliberately and consciously understated the risk to the disputed structure and general law and order. Rao answered several of the questions on the demolition. He said he was wary of the impact of hundreds of deaths on the nation, and it could have been far worse. And also he had to consider the scenario in which some of the troops might have turned around and joined the mobs instead. Regarding the dismissal of then Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Kalyan Singh, he said, "Mere dismissal does not mean you can take control. He takes a day or so appointing advisors, sending them to Lucknow, taking control of the state. Meanwhile, what had to happen would have happened, and there would have been no Kalyan Singh to blame either." Rao's government was facing a no-confidence motion in July 1993 because the opposition felt that it did not have sufficient numbers to prove a majority. It was alleged that Rao, through a representative, offered millions of rupees to the members of Jharkhand Mukti Morcha and possibly a breakaway faction of the Janata Dal to vote for him during the confidence motion. Shailendra Manto, one of those members who had accepted the bribe, turned approver. In 1996, after Rao's term in the office had expired, investigation began in earnest in the case. In 2000, after years of legal proceeding, a special court convicted Rao, and his colleague Butta Singh Rao was sentenced to 3 years in prison for corruption. Rao appealed to the Delhi High Court and remained free on bail. In 2002, the Delhi High Court overturned the lower court's decision mainly due to the doubt in credibility of Manto's statement, which were extremely inconsistent, and both Rao and Butta Singh were cleared of charges. Rao, along with fellow minister K.K. Tiwari, Chandraswamy, K.N. Agrawal, were accused of forging documents showing that Ajay Singh had opened a bank account in the First Trust Corporation Bank in St. Kitts and deposited $21 million in it, making his father VP Singh its beneficiary. The alleged intent was to tarnish VP Singh's image. This supposedly happened in 1989. However, only after Rao's term as Prime Minister had expired in 1996 was he formally charged by the Central Bureau of Investigation for the crime. Less than a year later, the court acquitted him due to lack of evidence linking him to the case. Lakhubai Pathak, an Indian businessman living in England, alleged that Chandraswamy and K.N. Agrawal along with Rao cheated him out of $100,000. The amount was given for an express promise for allowing supplies of paper pulp in India. Pathak alleged that he sent additional $30,000 entertaining Chandraswamy and his secretary. Narasimha Rao and Chandraswamy were acquitted on the charges in 2003. Before his death, Rao was acquitted of all the cases charged against him. In spite of significant achievements in difficult situations, in the 1996 general elections, the Indian electorate voted out Rao's Congress party. After the loss, Rao stepped down as party president. He was replaced by Sitaram Kesari. Rao rarely spoke of his personal views and opinions during his 5-year tenure. After his retirement from national politics, he published a novel called The Insider. The book resembled events from Rao's own life. According to a vernacular source, despite holding many influential posts in the government, he faced many financial troubles. One of his sons was educated with the assistance of his son-in-law. He also faced trouble paying fees for a daughter who was studying medicine. According to PV Prasad, an IAS officer who was Narasimha Rao's media advisor, when the latter was Prime Minister, Rao asked his friends to sell away his house in Banjara Hills to clear due of the lawyers. Narasimha Rao was married to Satyamma Rao, who died on July 1, 1970. They had 3 sons and 5 daughters. His eldest son, PV Ranga Rao, was an education minister in Kotla Vijay Bhaskara Reddy's cabinet and MLA from Hanamakonda Assembly constituency in Warangal district for 2 terms. His second son, PV Rajeshwar Rao, was a member of Parliament of 11th Lok Sabha from 15th May 1996 to 4 December 1997 from Secunderabad Lok Sabha constituency. Rao was awarded the Pratibha Murthy Lifetime Achievement Award. Many people across the party line supported the name of PV Narasimha Rao for Bharat Ratna. In September 2020, the Telangana Legislative Assembly adopted a resolution seeking to confer Bharat Ratna on Rao. The resolution also requested the central government to rename the University of Hyderabad after him. In June 2020, the government of Telangana, led by Telangana Rashtra Samiti, had declared to organize 1-year-long centenary celebrations of Rao. The state government also decided to set up memorial and 5 bronze statues at various places including Hyderabad, Warangal, Karimnagar, Vangara and Delhi. PV Narasimha Rao suffered a heart attack on December 9, 2004 and was taken to All India Institute of Medical Sciences where he died 14 days later at the age of 83. His body was kept in state at Jubilee Hall in Hyderabad. A memorial was built for PV Narasimha Rao located adjacent to Sanjeevayya Park, developed in 2005 on 1.2 hectares of land known as PV Jnana Bhoomi. The government of Telangana declared his birthday to be celebrated as Telangana State Function in 2014. 10 years after the death, PV Narasimha Rao gets memorial in Delhi at Ekta Sthal, which is now integrated with Rashtriya Smriti, a common place for erecting memorials for former presidents, prime ministers and others. The memorial is raised on a plinth in marble bearing text highlighting briefly his contributions. The plaque describes Rao, known as the Scholar Prime Minister of India. Shri PV Narasimha Rao was born on June 28, 1921 in Lekanapalli village, Warangal district in Telangana state. He rose to prominence as freedom fighter who fought misrule of Nizams during the formative years of his political career. A reformer, educationalist, scholar, conversant in 15 languages and known for his intellectual contribution, he is called the Brihashpati of Andhra Pradesh.